What's up, everyone? Welcome to Relatively Uncharted. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Nick, and we're cousins, and we're here just talking about anything and everything.
Each week, we'll bring on a different guest, find out who they are and what they love to do.
And while we're getting ready for our next guest, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons below.
Here we go.
Thanks for hopping on, Gavin. I know we've talked about it for a while. We've kind of been messing around with schedules and whatnot, figuring out what works best, and it's kind of tough with three people, but we finally got something going, so that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
three
thanks for
people
having me.
in three different areas makes it a lot tougher. But Gavin, I'm
Yes.
glad we got you on here as well.
Just roll right into it. So if you listen before, Gavin, we just kind of just go through your career path and kind of what you've done to get there and whatnot, and then just kind of talk about your life and really just talk with the boys, see what's going on, kind of check in with each other and just stuff like that. So obviously you are a pilot, and that's kind of, I guess that's kind of open it up to you now, just like what's gotten you there, I guess is a good way.
Yeah, it's been one long road, honestly. The dream first came about when I was about oh gosh, probably back when I was around 7 or 8 years old. My father was always in aviation, and he could never do it because of medical problems. As pilots, we need to undergo strict physical examinations yearly, and one of his medical problems he has prevented him from doing that. So he's always been interested in aviation and then kind of shared that with me at a young age, just from watching Top Gun and traveling all over the US, visit my family down in Florida, and out in Los Angeles, just being around aviation, even living right near a local airport, seeing the general aviation planes kind of got me into it. And when I was 14, I took my first intro flight, as it was actually on my 14th birthday. I was down in Orlando. Um, and, prior to that, I bought a flight simulator, which is like an awesome tool to utilize. Believe it or not, it really helped advance me before I even started flying in real life. So back in middle school, I was doing the whole flight simulator thing, and then I gave it a real shot. I was surprised. My grandparents took me to an airport down in Orlando Executive for an intro flight to see if it was something that I really, would love to do. And yeah, I went up and instantly just fell in love. With intro flights, it's kind of, you're not really doing too much. The instructor is talking to you a lot, introducing you to how the flight works and everything, and all the different switches on whatever plane you're in. And but once you get up to altitude and everything, he does like the takeoffs and landings. He lets you have some fun and fly the plane around. And I just fell in love with it. And I'm kind of I mean, I've known Ryan for a while now, and I'm sure he can vouch on this. I'm kind of a very extroverted person. I'm always on the go, always need to be doing something. So I kind of figured, the 9 to 5 office life wasn't really for me. And I've just been honestly blessed to been introduced to aviation at such a young age and just really falling in love with it and really just knowing. I mean, I still have friends to this day in high school that be like that. I was just talking to my one high school buddy the other night, and he was like, "Man, I'm really happy for you." He's like, "I remember in sixth grade English class, you saying how you're going to be a pilot one day." And just I've just really been lucky and blessed in that aspect, with always knowing what I want to do, in my life, because I know some people can struggle with that, and it's probably very anxiety ridden, to not know what you're doing when you graduate college, like a bunch of people do. And I've just always been blessed to know what I want to do.
There's some good stuff in there. Nick, so we met in college through like a fraternity, and when we met, there's probably like 5, maybe 7 of them, something like that. They're all in this pro pilot major, and I was sitting there like, did I like pick the wrong degree? Like, what am I doing here? I've never seen so many kids in one concentration, and I was just like, I mean, I never like, obviously there are pilots in the world, but I just never really thought about, for me at least, like, oh, maybe I could fly planes today. That was like never a thought that I like really crossed my mind. And then I'm like, within like a year of college, I meet like I become like really close friends with 5, 6 of these guys that are all like chasing the same path, and honestly, I think they all are to this day. And something while there's like, you remember Aiden from one of our earlier recordings, Aiden Adams, the first Aiden.
Yep. Brave
Him and
soldier
Gavin,
went first.
him and Gavin met at like what even was it?
Yeah, Aiden, it's so funny. Just a quick backstory on Aiden. Him and I met in 2018 at Oshkosh. Oshkosh is this air show that happens for about a week in July, end of July into August, and it's like every aviation influencers there, like like every aviation performer you can think of, like the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds. Like it's a massive air show slash festival slash party that happens in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is just a weird location. But him and I got sponsored by a group called EAA to fly to Oshkosh and attend a camp that was the same week as this big festival that was going on. And him and I just bonded really quickly. And flash forward 2.5 years later, when we're looking at schools and everything, him and I stayed in touch here and there, and we both made it a goal to apply to Oklahoma State, and we both got in, which was amazing, and just decided to room together. And he still is one of my best friends, and he was definitely one of my closest friends in college.
Yeah,
That's
just
awesome.
a wild story. Like meet two or so years prior to like being a freshman in college, where you're gonna meet a bunch of people, and then end up like being like kind of like like they didn't fully influence each other go to like Oklahoma State together. It was both like an independent goal for both of them, and it happened that it was like to come together. Well, they both got into it. Let's just do it together.
Yeah. It was just
Something
crazy
else you
too,
touched
because
on.
he lived all the way in Austin, Texas, and I was halfway across the country from him. So it was just crazy how it all worked out.
Yeah, talk about, stars aligning. Like both of you guys obviously met before college and had a dream to, go to aviation school, be a pilot, be involved in aviation somehow. He chose to be an air traffic controller, you chose to be a pilot. But that's crazy, man. Just like the two of you set your goals and went for it and made it happen, which is kind of crazy that you both ended up at school at the same time and roommates no less, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
um, I'm so glad we have you on this episode, because there's a few things that you've already talked about that's just like perfect for, it makes you unique as a guest that I think other people should and would want to hear. So I definitely want to dive into that, but um, also we want to just get to know you as well, just like on a personal level. Like Ryan knows you pretty well, and he mentioned that he knows how extroverted you are. Like I met you, I guess, over a year ago at this point, right? Like we went to Keith Urban concert together, and we had a party bus. We drank on the party bus, and then I think you ended up sticking around for the whole weekend. Like it was just a family weekend, and you and your other buddy Tally were there, and it's like we just had a great time. So,
Oh, that was such a good time. The whole weekend was such a good time.
yeah, man, it was definitely took way too long for us to get together again, but yeah, glad glad it worked out. And
Yes.
the one thing I remember about that, though, to keep it in line with talking about school and your career, is like the first day that I got there. I think my flight was like delayed a day, right? I think I came in a day late.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed the grand opening of
Image.
Studios. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I came in, it was like midday. You guys came and picked me up at the airport, and then we were chilling out back by the pool. And
oh yeah,
I guess where you guys live is kind of close to Dallas Love and DFW, so you got like just the crosswinds of, I don't know if that's like the even Gavin. If I say something stupid like an aviation term, just like roll with it or correct me. But there was
All right, I
you
will.
have the different flight patterns of the two airports just flying overhead, and there must have been like half a dozen to 10 planes that flew over within like an hour or two, and both you and Tally are like, is that like a Boeing 737 definitely going to like going up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and then I'm like, how do you fucking know that? Like you sound like an
Yeah.
idiot. Like, and then like you pull up your tracker and you're like, yeah, it's a Boeing 737 going to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I'm like, it blew my mind. Like, how do you even like walk us through that? How did you like? What training gave you that? Like, did you listen to the jet? You just knew from the flight pattern?
I mean,
What was it?
honestly, like it's just one of those things. Like, I mean, the best way to put it is like, if you're a car person and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a Porsche 911 right there, and you're like, you can just tell by the headlights. It's kind of something similar to that. It wasn't no like real training, but it's just really the passion. I know Tally, Zach, another good buddy of Ryan and ours. He's an aviation major too, and pursuing to be a pilot. Um, Him and I have just always shared the same love too over that, and it's just kind of one of those things when you just love it so much, it's easy to you know be good at it and know what you're talking about, even if it's something as simple as oh my gosh, look at that plane flying over Ryan's house, and guessing it and knowing where like the general direction where it's coming from.
What's wild is that I was out at I was at work one day. I think we were actually out at training camp, and one of my coworkers is a former uh he's a former actually Oklahoma State Clayton Edwards. You know the name, Gavin? He was like a pro pilot major for like a year or two.
It sounds familiar. It's a pretty
He
tight
said he I think he
community,
said he
so
knew I think he said he knew you were Aiden. But anyways, we're sitting there in a plane. We just landed. We're at the rental car place, and planes are flying left and right, and a big one flies over our head. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that thing just definitely came from like China or whatever, something across the country or across the world." And I was like, to your point, Nick, like, how the hell do you even like know that? Like, there's thousands of planes right now. We're at an airport. We're at LAX right now. There's no way you know where this plane is coming from. And he pulls out the app, checks it, and he was right. And I was like, dude, like I've seen obviously you and Tally and everybody always do that, and then he did it, and I was like, this is some bullshit. Like, what's going on here?
yeah, exactly. Well, not to make a plug or anything, but any of those listening, and then also for you guys, great app for that flight tracker stuff is the one I use, Flight Radar 24. And let me tell you, if I was in Ryan's backyard, or if I had Ryan's backyard, man, I could just chill by his little pool area, have a few cold ones on a nice, like, warm Dallas day, and man, just watch those planes fly over the house all day, dude.
Yeah, man,
I think
that's
his first time down there, he was like, dude, like I could sit here all day. I don't want to leave. We do at the school is I don't want to leave. I was like, we gotta go.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true love for it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like so that's something I want to highlight is as well as like you mentioned it too is like you're blessed to have known what you wanted to do with your career, and you're fortunate enough that upon graduation, I'm assuming you landed the right type of gig that you're looking for, or at least something that's putting you in the right direction. But what got you there is not and actually I guess we'll get into it as well at some point, but you had to put in the reps. You had to like the car lovers, like they study their Porsche 911 so that they can identify it. Like you sat there and like studied your planes. You studied what type of plane you wanted to do. It didn't just happen overnight. um and I guess maybe the point that I want to highlight is that really, everyone says do something that you love, and it'll never be a job. It'll just be, you'll just earn a living from it. But really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. It's it definitely has its ups and downs just like any other job. I don't want to paint it as, this perfect job, and it's definitely not for everybody, but I've been I love what I do, and but it and anybody that's listening in aviation, and you could talk to any of those guys Ryan was bringing up, I mean, Zach Talbot, I mean, even Aiden, our one friend Jake Hickox, like you can ask any of them, and they'll tell you it's hard work. It's very hard work.
Yes, I can
Yeah.
definitely attest to that. Seeing these guys go through college and even post college, just like trying to navigate what the next step is, and there's never a clear answer. Like it's like I know I need hours, but how can I get these hours? And I'm always like, just go fly. And it's like it's not that easy. Like you
Yeah.
can't just go fly. And I'm just like, I don't know what y'all are talking about, but they know obviously more than I do, and it's definitely like something that it you can't just like sign up and like be like, oh yeah, I'll be a pilot one day. Like no, like you gotta like be seriously committed to the degree and the passion and the profession. Otherwise, like you'll burn out very quick.
Yeah, exactly. It's very at times it can be very I'm trying to think of the words to say, like, not like depressing, but there's definitely some low times with it because the challenge of getting flight hours for these companies to hire you it's very challenging. And you need to, without diving too much into it right now, you need to be very good at networking and then also be also lucky like I was.
Yeah. I think I heard kind of part of that story, which is awesome, right? It's obviously right place, right time. But
Yes.
and I'm sure your extroverted personality helped. But even for those introverts out there, like again, it's just if you put yourself in the position to have that opportunity and go for it, then it'll work out for anyone who's willing to seize the opportunity. But
Yeah.
one of the things, and you're talking about putting in the flight hours and putting in the extra time. It's like a cost prohibitive type of career to do, right? It's very expensive to go do those simulators and tests and intro courses that they offer at the airfields. Is there something that you could suggest for would be wannabe pilots that don't necessarily have the bankroll?
Yeah, I would say, and unfortunately, it is a very, very, very expensive career to get into. And my family's doing well off, but I didn't really have too much help with my flight training and cost. I had to take out loans for my flight training, which were quite a lot of loans. And I was lucky enough that my parents, kind of co-signed on them and everything. But there are a bunch of opportunities out there. I'm pretty sure EAA, which is an organization in aviation, they have all kinds of like scholarships. Another thing that is starting to become more of a popular thing is obviously there's a pilot shortage right now. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about that. It's more of experienced pilot shortage, not like new guys like me, building their flight time. There are a bunch of guys just like me trying to make their way to get to these airline jobs, just or private or whatever. But now, if you want to go to an airline, there's companies like I think Mesa is the one that I can think of, and I think even like Frontier and Spirit, they all have pilot pathway programs. Oh, and JetBlue also has one. Basically, where you join their program and they pay for your flight training, but the caveat to that is you're committed to working with them for X amount of years after you complete and get all of your hours. You're like locked in at their company, and you pay back. That's how you pay back all of the flight training. So for somebody that's really balling on a budget, or is in an unfortunate circumstance where they can't take out loans or don't have anybody to co-sign, that would be my recommendation, to really do your research on those pilot pathway programs. They're really great. And yeah, no, it's not ideal to be locked into a company under a contract of some sort for X amount of years. But, like I said, the aviation industry is certainly not for the weak. It is a very much grind to get your hours. But once you get to where you want to be, it's usually smooth sailing from there.
Nice pun.
No pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yes. Yes. No pun intended.
But that's an excellent nugget because and I mean that's it, so it's good to hear too. Like you got Spirit, Frontier, I guess not everyone thinks, those are the luxurious airlines. And, if you say you're a pilot for either one of those, it's different than saying you're a pilot for Delta or, Dubai Air or whatever.
Yeah.
But you said JetBlue is included in that, which is, I think that's also a pretty solid airline to be involved with. But that sounds very similar to what a lot of other corporate companies do. Like, so my company, if I wanted to go get a master's degree or an MBA, they would have a similar structure like that. But the difference, I guess, between these airline sponsorships is I've already graduated, right? But how does a student get noticed or recognized or even selected for this airline sponsorship? Is it post college or is it during, before, after? How does that work?
The really nice thing, and this would have saved me a few bucks if I would have known it, but I don't really have any regrets in life. I'm glad I went through college, but when COVID happened, it caused such a chaos in the aviation industry that companies were hurting for pilots so bad that a lot of them dropped their 4-year degree requirement. To get to the majors, and when I use the term majors, I'm talking about like American, United, Delta, all those guys. Southwest would even be considered one. So they dropped their 4-year bachelor's degree, and really these pathway programs, the one nice thing about them is they don't care if you, well, don't quote me on this, some of them might, but let's say you graduated from a 4-year degree and you're like, I don't know, let's say you wanted to be an artist and it somehow didn't work out for you, and somehow you're like, oh, maybe I could be a pilot, and you're looking at these pathway programs. The only thing they really care about is if you have no flight training at all. And that's actually a good thing. They want to take you from zero to hero all under their wing. Believe it or not, they will not look at guys who already have their licenses to be accepted into these programs, because like I said, they want to kind of do it their whole way. And I don't know if this is really the appropriate term, but groom them, like in the JetBlue way, and take
exactly
them from
what I was thinking.
zero flight time to being in the right seat of an airline jet.
So you're saying like a guy like Nick or I, hypothetically, like apply with a college degree and no felony at all, and been okay, and like there's a shot. I'm not saying we will, but there's a shot they'd hire us or get us into the program.
100%. The only thing is the problem is with these pathway programs, and even companies like mine, all the starter companies, they have so many applicants that it's like the key is, and what I tell Jake and Tally, all those guys like trying to get into a company, is like the key in this industry is really knowing somebody. If you know somebody on the inside, I mean, that goes and I think that goes for any industry, but this more than any really goes a long way, and we can talk more about this later, but when I got hired at my company, I was talking to the recruiter and he's like, I'm not even hired. I mean, I'm getting like 3,000 plus applications a day for this position. And he's like, I'm not going through them. I'm hiring people that I've formed personal relationships with, and, or somebody at the company has referred and knows them personally. Just because he's like, and I don't blame him. He's like, it's just not efficient to be just scrolling through 3,000 applications, new ones every day.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. So definitely knowing, and that's where the networking comes in. Definitely knowing somebody on the inside is really key to
getting
a job early on.
So we'll just name drop you. We'll be all right.
Yeah. I'll do my best. No promises.
Yeah. Nah, we won't. We won't put any tailwind behind your name or headwind, whatever. Sorry, I tried to throw a pun there. I think you hit like 2 or 3 of them already, and
I
Normally, I
know,
like
and
to do
honestly,
puns, but
they're unintentional. I promise you. It's just I have no idea.
There's flow off his tongue, dude.
Yeah, I'm just
they're
on it
solid.
tonight, I guess.
Yeah, nice. But so again, like another incredible nugget that literally like anyone can do it. Obviously, the other point you brought up is right place, right time. Networking is important, but that goes with a lot of things in life that are worth going for.
Yeah,
You got to put in the effort, and I think
of
that's what
course.
what you're saying that recruiter's looking for is someone who's willing to put in the effort. Because why would I? I got a list of 3,000 names. What makes you different than any one of them? It's a person
Yeah,
who's putting in the
exactly.
effort to make sure that they like you and want to hire you.
Yeah,
But
and your name can get lost very, very easily in that long list of names.
lost and forgotten, um, or just buried, right? Just impossible to
Just
be.
buried, just buried because you got through. I mean, you got numerous applications, thousands every day.
Yeah. So one of the other things, I think we talked to Aiden about this, or at least I think I mentioned it or wanted to, and you brought it up. I think you went to your first flight intro at 14 years old, but it's like when I was a kid and thought that I could be a pilot. Um, it goes through those elementary school and up to high school type questionnaires from your teachers that you don't necessarily take so seriously. Like, I don't want to grow up yet. I'm just enjoying my time, right? But when you think like I want to be a pilot, I have no idea what goes into that. So like, it kind of blew my mind that Oklahoma State has like a pilot program within the school there. um, and essentially, if you had not done your intro lessons at 14, would Oklahoma State have accepted you into the program? Could
Oh
anyone
yeah,
have signed up, with good enough grades and been an easy candidate?
yeah. One thing, and I heard this actually like later on, with the application process at Oklahoma State, is so I remember back in 2019, uh, a few months before I got accepted into it, I went out to visit Oklahoma State, and it was this or Ohio University, not Ohio State, Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, that I was really set in between. Um, and I went
Do they
out
have
to
a
visit.
pilot program as well?
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt
yeah,
there,
yeah,
but
they do. No, no, no worries.
okay.
Yeah, they do. It's not as good though. I don't think it's really anywhere close. I can't speak how it is now, but back in 2019, it was definitely not on par with Oklahoma State's. Um, so I remember meeting with the head of the aviation program, and it was their first year where they had a cap on who they brought in for the aviation program. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be joking me because I knew it was going to be very, very competitive. Um, so to go to your question, I'm sure there are people in the program that did join with like zero flight time at all. But more than anything, they were obviously looking at grades. And I'll be honest, I'll be fully transparent on this podcast. I was a slacker in high school. I didn't get the best grades, so that was another thing that had me worried. And they, I lost my train of thought there. They definitely take into consideration, grades and everything. They don't just like look bypass it or anything. But more than anything, and I forget who I was talking to, maybe one of the deans of the aviation program, but the thing that really weighed the most was like prior experience and like showing your dedication to aviation before the program. And I was lucky enough to have, on my application, I had my trip, and I'm sure Aiden did as well, to Oshkosh and being sponsored to go on that EAA trip. And then I don't know. I mean, it's up to you guys. We can dive into this as well. But I also had an opportunity to do, and I'm doing air quotes, an internship back when I was actually the summer before I was going to, I think summer of 2018, where my one buddy's dad owned a plane and they let me sit right seat and kind of like shadow some flights for a few months, which was a great experience. And that was really in my opinion, an unusual experience for someone at my age to have. Um, and I think those two things really made me a strong candidate. But I'm sure there was other people that had no flight experience. And I think actually the way they did it was like they they accepted, I think it was like 10% was like transfer students from like a different program. And then like I think 75 of it was people with previous flight experience, and then the rest of it was just people with no flight experience. So I think they chopped the how they accepted people into like a certain percentage of their total pool. I think they only accepted like 200 people for that whole program that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's important for us to highlight the things that get you into the cockpit, the seat that you're in right now. How was that? That's a pretty good pun, right?
I
But
like that one. That was a good one.
yeah, but we want again, like I appreciate you helping out the listeners that want to be pilots, understand what they can do for extracurriculars, things to make them stand out, and um, like you said, it was a unique situation. You had a friend's dad who had a pilot that gave you the opportunity to get that flight experience. But the key point is, you had an internship, as you put it,
Yeah.
which is something that
Yeah.
someone can go out and look for. Again, it's not going to
Yeah.
just fall in your lap, but if you're looking for it, you're putting yourself in the opportunity. It can happen.
Unless you're lucky, it can fall into right into your lap. My second internship I had in college, I got extremely lucky in. And once again, I mean, my parents always have joked that I have a horseshoe up my ass because just throughout my aviation career, I've been extremely lucky and blessed. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what's this? What's this second internship?
Yeah, let's hear this. Let's
Yeah,
hear the
so
story.
this is
We can hear
this is
any
a great
version.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my junior year of college. And my little brother has a disability that requires him to go. Well, it doesn't require him, but my parents fly him down to get stem cell treatment, which is like a really whole fascinating thing in itself. That whole like stem cell treatment.
It's a whole,
And
for another day.
yeah, that's a whole other topic. But anyways, my mother was the one taking him, and the location for it is out of the U.S. It's in Panama, Panama City, Panama, down in South America. And my first thought is, it's around Christmas time. We went in like January. I told my mom, I was like, well, usually my mom's sister goes with her to give her company and everything, and she couldn't for some reason. And I told my mom, I was like, well, Mom, why don't I fly down with you? I don't want my mom down alone with my little brother in a third world country down in South America. So I figured I'd accompany them. And so I think I was back at school for spring semester for like a week. And then I left again, which was kind of poor timing because I remember I just got into a position for our fraternity and we just got a whole new pledge class, and it was my job to be in charge of the pledge class, but I had to have a friend the first week of pledgeship do it, kind of take over for me while I was gone. But anyways, we make it down to Panama City, and by the way, it's incredible down there. I definitely want to make it back down there, but we're staying at this super, super nice Hilton skyscraper resort. We're in the mid tier. The bottom tier is like a casino, and then believe it or not, the top tier was like this stem cell treatment place where I guess athletes from all around the world go to. Like I said, super fascinating. So I'm chilling at the pool one day, having a few drinks, and my mom sends me in to go order a pizza, and nobody knows a lick of English down there. So I'm sitting here and I'm like trying to figure out how to Uber Eats a freaking pizza, and they don't even have like they have their own version of Uber Eats. So I'm sitting here asking these bartenders who don't know English at all, and in comes this guy, and his name's Brian, and he told me how to. He assisted me because he was door dashing food for himself a few days prior. And I didn't think of any of it. I was like, oh, thanks, man. Great. So fast forward another day, I'm chilling out by the pool, enjoying some cocktails, enjoying the sun. It's like January. It's like 90 degrees down there, and I'm away. It's like 20 in Oklahoma, gusting 90-mile-an-hour winds. I'm enjoying myself. And I see him again, and he sits down next to me, and we just get to chit chatting, and turns out he's a pilot. So, like I said, right place, right time. And turns out he was down there. He owned a private jet company, managed private jets out of Destin, Florida. And he was down there flying a client who had knee problems and just had too much money, more than he knew what to do with. And Ryan would love this. He was a big Gators fan. His private jet was painted in like a Florida Gators livery. He was and every weekend he'd be in Gainesville flying. He just had stupid money. But we get to chit chatting, and the whole vacation, Brian and I, we just like kind of hit it off. We become really good buddies. We're having some drinks together. We're going to the casino together. Chilling by the pool and everything. And we just really hit it off, and he was kind of asking me where I was with flight training and everything. And you start out with your private license, and then usually the next step's your instrument rating, which allows you to fly into like low visibility, bad weather, clouds, and everything. And that's a major license to get. And he told me once I get that license, he would give me the opportunity to fly right seat in some of his corporate jets. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just met this guy like 4 days ago, all right, yeah, this sounds great. Maybe he's being realistic, but I was not getting my hopes up, because he was like, it was almost like a too good to be true kind of thing. He was like, yeah, you can come down to Destin, live with me. I got a extra room for you so you don't have to pay rent. He's like, then I'm like, well, what about my car? I don't have a car. He's like, you can just drive my cars. And I was just like, this just sounds way too good to be true. So we leave Panama, he goes back home, and we stay in touch. And sure enough, I passed my instrument rating actually the day before my birthday, May 1st. And I texted him, and he was like, all right, we'll book you a flight. And 2 weeks later, I was heading down to Destin, Florida, to where I lived for about 9 months, flying right seat in a Beechcraft Premier jet, and some turboprop aircraft, a Meridian 500. And it was really just very surreal, the whole experience. And that's why I have no issue hopping on here, and I'm willing to help anybody out, even if it's just the average Joe trying to make it in aviation, because I've been extremely blessed to be helped out by numerous people at this point to get to where I'm at. And that's what aviation's all about. It's all about paying it forward. So I love to help people out and give them some guidance, because I've been helped out a lot to get to where I am. But the whole internship was incredible. I ended up staying, it was supposed to be just for the summer, but I actually extended into a fall semester and did like a full load of courses online and continued it because he wanted me to stay down longer. But I definitely was not living a normal life for a 20-year-old kid in college. I was flying right seat in corporate jets. We were going to like the Bahamas, Aspen, Colorado, Vail. We were going all these crazy places, and it was an extremely great experience. And I definitely had my fair share of fun of down there at the same time. Anywhere from, you know, driving his fancy cars to he had a yacht that we went on all the time and went to Crab Island. If any of you guys are familiar with Destin, it's like this
I know
sandbar
Crab
that's
Island.
just like, yeah. And it was just, it was looking back at it, it was like, man, I was really just not living a normal life for. But and it's weird like how your perspective changes as you grow older and you know, kind of these experiences go away, or end, I should say, and looking back on them and just being like, that was just crazy for like the time period I was in. But it was definitely right place, right time, being personable and you know, kind of stepping outside my comfort zone, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to touch on there. Like probably one of the more like wilder stories that I've heard, at least from like a career jump. You know, like he's like down there like randomly with no intentions of making any moves to like elevate his career on this trip, just kind of like enjoying his time. And out of nowhere, he gets an opportunity that not only does not come by very often, but the fact that he was like in the middle, like in Panama, like the most not random, but fairly random country to be in. And this just gets thrown at him. And to your point, it's like, okay, I don't even know this guy. Like I had a drink or two with him and on vacation, and he wants me to live in his house and fly in his jets. That's pretty crazy. But the fact that this guy comes through, you know, over time, he comes through. He proves that he's like a genuine guy, and he means well, and he wants to help Gavin. Props to Brian. Probably never meet him, but if he ever hears that, props to him for that. I mean he didn't have to do that. You think about it, like he didn't need to do that. Wherever he was in his career point, he didn't need Gavin to like sit in his right seat to make sure that his planes continued to fly. It was a
Yeah.
genuine offer that ended up, you know, just helping Gavin out. And this is what I kind of wanted to touch on, like outside of the craziness and the fun story and how awesome it is and all that crap, like that elevated your timeline of flying like crazy, did it not? I mean, like you can kind of go into depth with that with the hour stuff, but I just remember like when you came back, you were like light years ahead of where some of these guys that we knew, you know, we mentioned earlier, Tally and all them were at, and it's like that's what you need. You need like a shot like that to like really get going, and like you said, awesome story, but more important, you got a crazy jump. So I guess you can kind of tell us more, but like I don't know, it just really I don't even know how to put it into words sometimes. So I'm like, this dude like came back from a a week trip, and he now is like a 2 years advanced in his career. I mean, like down the road became that, but he comes back from this Panama trip and he has this connection that will now launch him way ahead of a bunch of people. Not only is it going to be a cool experience, he's going to be light years ahead of his competitors.
Yeah, it definitely helped advance me tremendously. I'm super grateful for the opportunity. Brian and I still stay in touch to this day. He's a good buddy of mine. But yeah, like what Ryan was saying, I definitely would not be at home right now working the job I am without this opportunity. The main thing is you know, I kind of, and one thing that actually wasn't mentioned is this was actually, believe it or not, you know, to leave Oklahoma to go live in Destin, Florida, and you know, drive these nice cars and fly these private jets to like exotic places like the Bahamas, Key West, you know, Aspen, Vail. I mean, you name it, New York City. It was a very, very difficult decision for me to make, for numerous reasons. I was giving up, you know, a semester at school. Um, I was going to be away from my family for the whole entire summer. At this point, it was almost like a year I was away from my family. Family's super important to me, and not on, and on the aviation side was the thing with the Oklahoma State program is it's called a 141 program, and it's the regulations they fall under, and it's super super strict and down to a T. So a difficult thing was I was talking to my, you know, higher ups, the deans and the people that oversaw the aviation program about this opportunity, It's like once in a lifetime opportunity. And the thing that really made it difficult was that none of my flight time was going to be accredited for this program, because you have to do it all through them in order to get this thing called a restricted ATP license, where I can go fly for the airlines at 1,000 hours instead of 1,500. So it was a very difficult decision to make. I talked to all of my friends about it. I mean, I talked to my mom about it, my dad. I talked to Dr. Vance, who's someone I look up to, who was a high up in the aviation program. He retired my senior year of college, but super good dude. And he told me I should do it. And, I'm like, okay, this guy probably knows a thing or two, obviously. So I actually had to switch my major from professional pilot to aviation management, which is the same degree Aiden has, and to stop doing flight training with the Oklahoma State program. And the scary part about that was I was talking to my counselor, and he was like, Gavin, if you go forward with this, it's not like if it doesn't work out, you can't just get let back into the program. You're going to have to go through the whole application process over again. And that scared me. But I kind of just said, screw it. You only live once, kind of thing. There has to be some reason that this opportunity appeared out of me, or appeared out of nowhere for me. And, I took it and kind of never looked back. And it was a great experience, and really, like Ryan was saying, put me light years away. I had to finish my ratings through a local flight school down in Destin, where I got my commercial licenses and everything, and it really just put me way light years away in front of what the Oklahoma State flight program pace was kind of looking like at the time.
So
that's awesome, dude.
We never really sorry if you have something to say real quick. I just wanted a little bit, like, we never really, I don't think we ever mentioned what is your title now? Like, what are you doing right now? I guess we probably should have started there, but along the journey. Yeah. But what are you doing right now?
Yeah, so right now I fly for a regional airline out of Philadelphia called Contour Airlines. They're based out of Smyrna, Tennessee. We have bases in Philadelphia, Baltimore, Dallas, Chicago, O'Hare, Nashville, and Charlotte. And I'm a first officer for them. And I always tell everybody it's a regional under American Airlines, just because it kind of is, but kind of isn't at the same time. We have an interline agreement through American. So, like, you can book an American Airlines flight through us. So, like, for an example, we go to all small cities and connect them to our big hubs, mainly for these people to hop on connecting flights on American. So, like, for an example, you could book on my small airline, one of the, I'm trying to think of a place you guys would maybe know on the map that we go to. Let's say, Carolina, right? Yeah, like Charlotte, and they do you guys know Tupelo, Mississippi? That's where Elvis was born. Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere, but you could book a flight from Tupelo to, like, Rome on Contour's, like, website, but you would be on, like, a Contour plane from Tupelo to Charlotte, and then you would hop on, like, an American Airlines plane. So we have agreements with these airlines to flow traffic through them. Gotcha. But yeah, I to go back to it, I'm a first officer for them, so I'm a co-pilot. And common misconception I've actually had a lot of people ask me is, do I fly the plane? And because I'm a co-pilot, which I do, it's just we share the duties, so fly one flight, I'll fly the other. And even when we're not flying, we still have all those buttons to press, talking to air traffic control and everything. But it's great. I fly Embraer 145, which is a regional jet that holds about 55 people. And it's a grind. I'm definitely grinding right now. I'm blessed to have this opportunity, but it's definitely not all sunshine and butterflies. I'm gone from home a lot. I don't make the best money. I work long days. It's definitely like one of those jobs to get you to where you want to be, but you're paying your dues. And that's what kind of is letting me keep my head down and, really grind through it because it's been hard.
Yeah. That's well, first I didn't want to interrupt any of that because but finishing up following up your story from just meeting Brian and everything, like that's incredible. Like you literally you're blessed to have something like that, which is awesome. But even like hearing, like I've only heard bits and pieces from Ryan of the story, which all great bits and pieces, and then hearing your side of the story as well. Like the story just gets better and better every time I hear it. So it's really cool,
Yeah.
man. And a couple things I wanted to follow up on that is some stuff you said is you had to change your program at school, which is a huge risk if things didn't align as you expected or wanted them to. But the point is, like, you took risks that put you into this position, and you know, no good thing is worth having if you don't put any risk on the line for it.
Yeah.
You took your opportunity, you went for it. I'm not saying bet bet your house on it, but that's you were still young. You still had a lot of. You're still super young. Like I think you guys just graduated last year, right? You're
Yeah. Yeah.
a
Just
year
graduated
a
last May.
year. Yeah, so you've got more than half your life ahead of you, which is a blessing in and of itself. But the other thing too that you brought up that I will roll with is you said you it's tough. You're putting in your dues. You're grinding. You're on the grindstone. Your head's down, just focused on getting to the next step, which I think is important to highlight because, and I guess you said your pay is not great. We won't get into what you're making, but I would like to ask at some point, what is the expected, salary or something that you're hoping to get to at X stage of your career. But one thing that everyone thinks, or I know I'm guilty of thinking it, is, if I had this job right out of school at 25 years old, whatever, I'd be making X amount of dollars. At one point, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I was like, yeah, get that $100,000 salary. Now I'm sure with, inflation at this point, it's much higher. And that's, just barely, 100K a year is barely making ends meet in some areas that you live. You're outside of Philly, you
Yeah.
said, like, I'm sure that's a large metro. It's certainly not cheap, but,
Yeah.
but it is going to be a grind. You're going to have to work your ass off to put in your dues. Sure, you won't make it year one, but year two, year three, year five, year 10, at some point you will be, you said your first officer, co-pilot. I'm sure that's the very entry level. I don't know how the tiers or structures work in that role, but at some point you're going to be, you're going to drop co and you're going to be pilot, right? You're going to be the head honcho. You're going to be, the one who is in the front seat, I guess the left seat. I don't know how the cockpit
Yeah.
works, but
Yep.
yeah, you're the main guy, right? I
Yeah.
just rambled on about a bunch of nonsense right there, but main thing I was trying to say is, like, yeah, don't feel down that you're not making the most money, and I know it's tough putting in all those hours, but that's what it is, right? You got to pay your dues and get to the uh, get to the next stage of your career, which is bound to be worth it, right?
Yeah.
What you put
And
everything
and
for. So
and really, I mean, I know I keep saying this, but I just truly am blessed to also just be in an industry, because even though I'm not making a lot right now, I'm most likely I'm under contract with this company right now because they paid for my license to fly this jet. Um, and that was a few dollars. I think it costed around $36,000 for my one license, so they paid for it. So I signed a training agreement, so I have to uphold mine. But definitely once I get done with that training agreement, the next step, I'm super grateful to where no matter where I'll go, I'll more than triple my salary. And it is fortunately an industry that pays extremely, extremely, extremely well right now. So that also helps with, keeping my head down and, even though I'm not living the best life right now and really just grinding right now, that's some more motivation to get to the end of my contract and go fly for a different company and really just take a substantial pay increase along with, I mean, money's great and everything, but one thing this airline has taught me is, the money will come with aviation no matter where I go. I'm looking more for quality of life. I love my days off. I love, you know, uh, spending time with family and friends when I'm off. And that's a big deal to me too, is quality of life, especially down the road with trying to have a family and stuff like that and a girlfriend eventually. That I'll look into as well.
Searching the networks for it. But
Mhm.
yeah, quality of life. Ryan and I have talked about it. Maybe in one of our previous episodes, or it's in our vault waiting to be released at some point. But quality of life is huge. Like money's one thing, but the most valuable asset we have in life is time. You'll never get that
Yeah,
back.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and I mean, it's cool to be, fly out of Charlotte to Rome and or go to Key West, go to the Bahamas or whatever. But if you're literally like flying and then you're back on the next flight, or you can't leave the hotel because you guys are under restrictions. I don't know the rules, but why go to Rome if you can't enjoy it, right? So hopefully you get
Yeah.
that opportunity. You know, and those are, aside from salary and direct benefits, but like those are, subsidiary benefits, the 36K that this company shelled out to get you your license. Like me personally, I would tack that onto my, annual salary and say like, I made 36K more a year than whatever I'm making, right? Because that's a secondary benefit that you got, which is
Yeah,
something to
exactly.
think about for a lot of these kids, coming out of college. Like one thing I've worked for a few companies, and one company will do a 401k match. Whether you believe in 401ks and retirement plans, there are 401k matches that companies will do. Like you have to meet a certain threshold. There's some companies that will literally just, as long as you stay there and you're vested for a certain period of time, they'll match up to a point, and you don't even have to put any of your own pre-tax dollars into it. So like those are all benefits that you should look into when you're trying to establish, what you call a a salary or an income or something that's worth adding to your lifestyle or your quality of life. That's something
Yeah.
that should be considered that a lot of people don't think about. Uh, but
Yeah,
again, when you're
exactly.
22 years old, you wouldn't know any better, right? Know any different? So
I wanted to
Yeah.
rewind just real quick. Gavin touched on it and talked about kind of the grind and how, the low pay, long hours, hard work kind of is the entry level position and the spot you need. And not to like this, it is tough. And I'm in a similar position. Nick, you were well aware. Gavin, we talked about it. We're in a similar position in that manner of like, yeah, it's long days, pays crap, like it is what it is. But I think the experience is important that you're getting. I think perspective is a super important thing to keep in these times because for me, I get people on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it is that see my profile or see my background, and these dudes that work at a college equipment job for a football team, whatever it is, they DM me and they're like, "How do I get your job?" Da, da, da. And some days I'm like, "Dang, like I'm looking for the next job already," and it kind of keeps you back in it. Like there's kids out there that really like they know like these kids. Like, this is something that the equipment world has taught me is that these equipment kids they know what they're like. I didn't know what I was getting into. I had never worked equipment before. This is my first like equipment role, so I was kind of just like blessed to be in a sports organization, just like do whatever I had to do, and I got into it, and like now I know what it is, and it's long work, it's long hours, hard work, low pay. That's just the reality of the department I'm in. Um, and these kids come from colleges, working these jobs. They know exactly what they're getting into. Like they know the hours are gonna suck. Like sometimes you're gonna have to go in at 3 a.m. post away game to get stuff ready for next week. That's just the way it is. Like and you're not going to be, paid well for it. And like they continue to hit me up. I'm like, how do I get this job? How do I get this role? How do I get here? And that kind of for me is like, okay, like you're in a position that a lot of kids want to be in, and they know what they're signing up for. So maybe be more grateful, or maybe like have a better perspective. And I like that's something that I've worked on really hard this year is like perspective. Is because like you got to understand where you're at in life, like not just always like looking to where you want to go. Like you kind of got to be where your feet are more often than not, and be like, okay, like I'm in a good spot, like I'm comfortable. I have good things around me where I'm able to live at home. I'm able to make that the sacrifice of low pay because I'm able to live at home, like things like that. Like be be where your feet are and like be okay with where you're at, because there's plenty of kids, hundreds of kids, thousands of kids that would rather be where you are versus where they are, or want to be where you are versus they are.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of can just like flow into like the next question I was going to ask Gavin, kind of like the bridging the gap segment. Like we talked about how awesome Destin was, and how grateful you are for your job right now, and like you able to live this super cool job and fly cool planes, and like you were saying how for the Destin job you have to like fly cool planes, drive cool cars, live in Destin, and like that's all beautiful, like right, it's all cool to say, and
But
like I get to work for the Dallas Cowboys, and I get to see all these people, Dak Prescott, whoever the hell it is that people are fans of, but like behind the scenes, it's not always as pretty as it seems. So I wanted to ask you, Gavin, like what are the most challenging parts of your job right now?
yeah, I would say, and that was all very well said. I can relate to all of that. Definitely, that's something that I've also been, kind of working on as well. Because something I've found is two things that nobody really talks about how difficult the transition is from college to your first job in the adult world. And I think that should be talked about more because it kind of shocked me because, it has been difficult adjusting to working a full-time job and everything. And, back in college when you're like, yeah, I don't want to do anything today. You didn't do anything. You could just be like, oh, I'll make up the assignment or whatever. And but now it's
Yeah.
like you have to go to job, and especially with the career path that I'm in, like if I call out sick just because I don't want to go into work, like it screws over other people trying to get home to see their families or whatever. Um, I would definitely say the challenges with my job, definitely like the fatiguing schedule, being away from home, believe it or not, numerous nights. Some my trips are like can be 7 or 8 days at times, and it can also be very fatiguing. So I think more than anything, it's like a mental thing. It's easy to kind of what I was saying, gonna tag into before, is it's easy for your mind to default into being negative. Um, and something that I've really, really, really been training my brain to be is as soon as I feel those negative thoughts about coming in, I kind of, even if I don't want to be, I try to be as positive as possible because it's astounding what even faking being positive when you don't want to be can do to your mindset and to your day. But definitely, like, mentally, my job's been very difficult. Just being away from home, working fatiguing schedules, um, you know, long days. I mean, we leave the hotel at 7 a.m. and get back at like 8 p.m. I'm flying all day, and especially up in the Northeast right now. I mean, we flew in some weather last week that was just insane. You know, it was never like a question of safety. I want to put that out there. It was just, it was one of those things where we were getting rocked around by turbulence, and our passengers were freaking out. Our flight attendant was getting nauseous and sick, and days like that definitely make my job way more difficult. You earn your paycheck, getting people safely to where they want to be, and to tag into being away from home. Well, you may be like, yeah, maybe you chose the wrong career, but really, when you get to the next level, my 7 to 8 day trips are the longest trips that I'll do at my company. And the longest trips that you'll do at a company, like Southwest or like American, are like 3-4 days. So like I said, it just goes back to that grinding thing. I mean, it's long trips. You're tired. You're doing long days. And especially right now, I'm sure during the summer it'll be a lot easier. But just flying in the Northeast out of Philadelphia, and we do a lot of flights up to upstate New York. It's just it can be a big, big, big mental game. With moving forward and kind of steering away from defaulting to be negative. Um, um, and
And you gotta remember, like, these 7 to 8 days. Like, we think about, like, oh, that's not that long of a time. This isn't vacation. Like, he's not 7 to 8 days away from home, like on vacation. It's 7 to 8 days where you wake up in the morning, you go work for a whole day, and you go and sleep in a new city, and then the next night you work. Then you work another day, and you sleep in a whole new city the next day. Like, we're not just like going to Destin or Mexico for 7 days. That's not what.
yeah,
That's
having
I mean, like,
flying one flight out of Philly to Nassau, having a freaking Mai Tai on the beach, and then going to bed and doing it again the next morning. It's definitely, maybe one day it will be like that when I'm flying for like a company like American and everything. And that's really what helps keep moving me forward is, that's just the pay my dues era, going back on that again. Because there will be times like that, but now it's just like grinding. And I mean, I'm flying up into upstate New York where it's cold in PA, it's 27 degrees here, and then we land there and it's -4 and it's freaking 80-mile-an-hour winds snowing in your face as soon as you open the door. So, it's
Buffalo Bills
it's
fans
fatiguing.
are smashing tables with their shirts off.
Yeah, I saw that. That was great. I saw a video of them today where they were smashing a table and it was like on fire and they jumped off this like 12-foot
oh god.
pile of snow. And I was like, dude, these guys are crazy.
Mafia,
I
the Bills Mafia.
think
Yeah, those
Gavin, you said
mafia.
another good point, and Nick and I actually we talked about this the other day. He was in town for a little bit around New Year's, and it was honestly one of the first conversations we had when he got there. And I want to let Nick lead this convo, but the reality of going from college to life is not talked about a lot at all, and it's something that I think obviously I'm still like so young in that life, but I think I've finally gotten like past the first like grunt of the toughness, and I didn't even
Yeah.
realize I was in it. Like, I just thought it was life as it is, and then Nick was like, he said it to me. He's like, like, the jump from college life isn't easy, and I kind of like just like took a step back and I was like, now that you say that, like, it's not. And there was things that I had to like
Hmm.
kind of figure out about myself and like stuff, and just I don't know,
Yeah.
just it was a weird trigger in my head when Nick said that I was like, wait, like, yeah, that's what I just went through this past year and a half or so, like kind of just figuring out life and who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, and like really becoming like more in touch with yourself. And I kind of want that, like, Nick, not to like age you, but this is why the podcast works, is because like Nick's exactly 10 years older than me. So
Yeah.
anything that I'm going through or me and you are going through, like, Nick has done it and he's well past it by now. So like kind of let Nick just kind of like guide us through that kind of conversation and kind of throw some good stuff at us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely have experience beyond that, but I mean, your whole life is always going to be growing from one stage to the next, and you're always going to run into your own trials. But Gavin, you kind of said it too, is like, if you're not feeling it today, you can't, and like, oh, I got a quiz later, I got to study for the test. Like, this isn't college anymore, where it's like, yeah, you could easily get bailed out. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy to study for a test and just pass it just to get to the next class, but it's a lot different than not showing up, being late on a report that you have to send out. I mean, I guess your career is different from Brian's, which is different from mine, which is different from other people. But like, the example is the same. Like, you can't just blow off one task and push it to the very end and then say, yeah, I'll rush it and turn it in before the due date.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that anymore. Because you're just going to get, it's just going to compound and you're going to get just obliterated at some point later down the road.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then and like, you can't just wake up and be like, yeah, what do we got in the fridge? We got hot dogs and buns and leftover frozen margaritas. Like, fuck it, it's Tuesday, let's go. Like it,
Yeah.
you still got to show up to work. So,
Yeah, exactly.
um, but graduating from that lifestyle is not easy, right? And especially,
Well,
I mean, some people
yeah,
have their act together. Like they have this, they have their straight and narrow path, and they know exactly what they want to do. But I would argue to say like you're not really living. You're following some sort of
yeah,
curriculum that your parents probably outlined for you because they knew what they had. They gave you the recipe for success, and but if you don't deviate from that, then you'll be successful. Like again, you're not living. You're not going down to Panama and meeting this guy that's gonna hang out with you for the next 3 days and then get you to your career. That's gonna
yeah,
jumpstart your career rather. But
yeah,
without those experiences, it's life is about trials and failures and successes, and how do you bounce, zigzag between all those and navigate it and make it to your next trial. Like I would say the important thing about, I guess, that whole speech is like get to the next step. If you survive this trial, whether it's easy or tough, and you get to the next one, you have that experience to go off of and be like, I made it through that. Like I'll take my lessons from that, good or bad, and I'll apply it to the next lesson. And um, as long as you're surviving and getting through it, like
Keep
they're
stacking.
just keep stacking it up. Life will compound, and it'll certainly get you to that, triplicate of that salary that you're hoping for on that next,
yeah.
career jump.
And
But
and and one of the things I'd like to tag on, and I could talk about this all day, because it was something that also blindsided me, because I'm like, man, why am I really struggling? And then it was like the same thing Ryan just said is, like someone said like, well, the transition isn't easy, and it almost like I thought about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is why. And I'm a social butterfly. I can talk to pretty much anybody. And one of the things too is just like how difficult the transition from college and the workforce has been is, with like socially is, all I went from, you know, living in a fraternity house, being, like Ryan, I was also the president of my fraternity for a year. And, having all your friends within a 100-foot radius, going out every night, going to parties, always doing something, with my buddies, to now where I'm like, well, my buddies are working, a bunch of my college friends are back out west. My friends that are in high school, they're all working, they're all over the place. So, it's really, my social life went from being great to not non-existent, but way different now, in a span of months. And you know it just goes into making it even more of a challenge. And I could talk about this topic for a while because I like to, I'm a so like I said, social butterfly, and I really don't have a challenge talking about anything. I'll tell people how I feel, and that's that. And I really think it's something that should be talked about more because I'm sure there's people out there that are struggling with anxiety or depression, and they don't realize the transition from college and to the workforce is really making those types of things worse. So I like talking about it because I know hearing that you're not alone and other people are feeling exactly how you are, kind of makes you feel more normal and like, oh, okay, maybe this is just a thing in life and how it is at this age.
Like it's tough, but it's normal. Like we've all
Yeah,
been there.
yeah,
We've all experienced it, whether you're in it now or you were in it 10 years ago. But I think another thing for you and I, Gavin, it's pretty similar. And I think Nick, you might have experienced this a little bit. Um, but I know we talked about this whenever we talked about it earlier, Nick. But not only is the college to life jump hard, but when you go from college to life and it's back in the hometown you grew up in, so been here for 20ish years now in the same mile radius, whatever, 5 mile radius. You're not the same. You're not the same person you were for those 18 years you went through grade school. And although you're not the same person, you don't do the same things. You have a different responsibility and different community. Like what you provide to the community now is different than what you provide to community when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. Like your responsibilities are not the same. Like you're in high school, you do whatever the hell you want. You go out and whatnot. But like you're a grown adult now, you have to act appropriately. Like it's just a different, like you're in the same place, but it's not the same life. That's I guess the best way to
Yeah.
put it. And it's just
Yeah,
different. It's one of those
exactly.
things you kind of like gotta understand. Like, hey, like I can't be acting like I did when I was 18 years old. Even though it's easy because you're at home and that's what you're used to do. But like it's just not. That's not the same anymore.
Yeah, I think you'll mature and grow and not even find interest in those same things anymore. At
Right.
least, society would hope that you do, right? At this point, now that you're an adult, you go from, being a taker upon society to a giver. Those who end up in poor situations, years into their adulthood are those that are takers. Just they'll be perpetual takers. But now you're a provider and a giver. Like you said, you're in the same community, but the way that they look at you, the way that you're perceived is totally different. You can't be that, 16, 17, 8-year old, douchebag that will catcall at a girl walking down the street. Like when you're 30 years old,
Yeah.
it's just not cool anymore.
Not
It
cool.
Yeah,
never, it
exactly.
never was. It never was cool, but like at least like you had friends that would laugh at it. Now nobody's gonna laugh at it. You're gonna
No.
get arrested, right? So you do have to
Yeah.
grow up and mature. But and and that was the other thing we talked about. I think we were in the car coming back from the airport. Um, one thing that I was grateful for is I moved away from home. Like I grew up in Florida, moved to Jersey, New York, and I think that was very transformative as far as an eye opener. Like here's where it's time where that I start to mature and grow up. I think it's very important for people to get out of their comfort zone, and that'll help
Oh
them,
yeah.
you know, find who they are, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I appreciate you being vulnerable with us, Gavin. That's and your point before too is uh, hearing someone else is in the same situation. You feel less alone. You feel more normal, and it's easy to get through. And the same way we're talking about like careers and people wanting to learn about their careers. Like I hope that someone can get on this, listen to our podcast, and they'll hear this little bit and be like, yeah, thank God, right? And it's something important for them to hear.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for sure.
gotta.
I mean, I could talk hours about it,
Yeah, Ryan and I have, right? So um, we'll get you on a second podcast, and we'll dive more into it. But
Yeah.
we'll kind of keep it moving for this one since we kind of, I think we went as deep as we can in this time period. But um, so I told you before we were getting on, I had some new questions I wanted to ask. I want you to be the guinea pig for this, and I kind of alluded to it a
Alrighty.
little bit before. Yeah. So, but as far as us like expanding on this podcast and having listeners want to come back and even tune in for the first time or whatever, I want them to get some important information. I mean, you've shared a ton of important information, but I want to extract one more bit that I think is kind of important that a lot of young people base their decisions off of. So I said
Okay.
before, you don't have to share what you're making, but share what you expect a salary range to be, or expect what you share what you expect it to be, or maybe you've even researched yourself and know what you want it to be at 5 years in, 10 years in, or whatever. Like, what's a standard salary as a pilot?
Yeah, so to touch on this, like extremely blessed to be in an industry where we're at a time right now where the pay is just absolutely bonkers at some of these places. I'd say definitely, 5 years down the road, it'll probably be close to somewhere around 200,000 a year. And then even further beyond that, it will probably be closer to, depending on where you go. I know it can be upwards to anywhere in between 350 to 500,000 a year. So definitely, it's worth the 1 year of making, not so great money, to be a pilot. But some of these places just um, pay a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think, I mean, those salary numbers like that kind of opens up your eyes and your ears perk up a little bit. Like, did you really just say that? Like 5 years in,
Yeah.
when you hear that, you think of like, hedge fund banker or something like that. It's, you know, it's a incredibly, uh, you know, like you said, you're blessed to have that opportunity. But that's
Yeah.
what I wanted listeners to hear, right? Like they say, if they're doing it because they love flying, that's one thing, right? But if someone else says like, "Oh, I'll put up with the grunt work. I'll take it on the chin for a period of time, but I want to make sure that my quality of life I'll be able to provide for that with the salary that I'm making." And then like they're 2 years in and they're like, "What? I'll only make this much? Like, why am I doing this? Like, I should have changed my career path in college. I should have been a lawyer, right? I don't know." But and that's standard, right? That's just, you get to your first officer, your pilot, your any tier, whether you're Contour, Frontier, um, Embraer, I don't know the airlines. So I'm not even gonna pretend like I do know them all, but
Yeah,
but right, that's standard. So it's something
yeah.
for
It's all seniority based. So every year you're with a company, like year one pay, let's say, is like 130,000 a year. Year two pay will be like 146, and so on. So seniority is like the name of the game at all the airlines.
yeah. And you get to cherry pick the best like flight paths as well. Like
Oh
someone
my
who's
gosh,
like
yeah.
yeah. So like right now you're flying up back and forth between upstate New York in the middle of winter, which I'm sure is not easy. You said you earn your pay when you do that. Like someone could say like, fuck that. I don't want those, those crazy jet streams. Like I want I want, a nice easy trip. I've done it for 10 years. Like I just want to make sure that I can show up to my kids' soccer practice, at the end of the week.
Yeah, if like you play your cards right, I mean, you can be a young guy like in your 30s or even, late 30s, and have a family, and where you're only making, or where you're only working like 10 days a month and you're making $400,000. It's a great
Well, it's only
industry to really just pay your dues, and to get to where you want to be. And when you get to be super senior, where you're doing stuff like that, like working 10 days a month making that kind of money, I mean, you can bid any trip. So if you're like, I want to only fly to the Bahamas, you'll get it because you have the seniority. So it's super great.
maybe
Yeah.
I need to be a pilot.
Yeah,
He's telling you
it's
right now, like,
you
him,
gotta pay
you
you
have
no,
your
I don't want
bachelor's.
to make it sound like all sunshine and
No,
butterflies, but
I
you gotta pay. It's a grind to get there.
no, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. That's why I'm like, do I really want to be? But then once you're there, it's like I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Yeah. Um, but I think we've scrubbed a lot of info about being a pilot, and there's a few other things you brought up, and part of this podcast too is we get to know you as the pilot, but we get to obviously know you on a personal level as well, and I kind of want to be a little bit more polarizing too. I want some things that like we can throw on TikTok, like throw a quick clip on there, and someone will like reshare that and be like, "Did you hear what these guys talked about?" Like, and then it just goes viral,
Yeah,
right? And we
yeah.
talked about if listen, you're the guinea pig tonight, so I appreciate you. We talked about stem cells, and that's a
Mhm.
very hot topic, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. But it's still at one point it was like the only person I knew of that was doing it and was like very polarizing, was proud of it, is Dan Bilzerian, and he was doing it for like muscle for his muscles, right? And he's lived a like a playboy lifestyle, and it's like you know but now your little brother goes there for real health benefits, and you fly down to Panama. But like, what do you know about stem cells? What can we talk about that's exciting that it's changed from 10 years ago where we were watching old YouTube videos of Dan Bilzerian throwing girls in bikinis into the pool from his rooftop.
I love stem cells.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm honestly not the most educated. I mean, oh my God, my mother, she's done so much research on it and read so many books. She read the book of the doctor we went to go visit, and she's been incredible through all of it, even with my career, just supporting me. I'm very blessed to have her in my life and to have her as my mom because she's just been super supportive. But I mean, it's incredible how you can utilize these, stem cells for different health benefits, whether it's for like a disability you're born with or simple things, like the one guy my boss was flying down. I think he had something like extremely wrong with like his knees or like some severe arthritis, and it's extremely expensive. I think it's like tens of thousands of dollars per session. Um, I know some people like refer to it as liquid gold, and it's
Yes.
truly astonishing. Like some of the benefits that can come from it with, helping people with disabilities and, improving that. And like I said, I'm not too educated on it, and it's definitely something that interests me. But yeah, I think the whole thing is extremely fascinating.
I'll touch on this a little bit because I actually learned about this for a little bit in college through my degree. My professor, she was very educated upon it, and we had a few conversations just like one on one about it. Because when we talked about it in class, I kind of like got like a little bit of interest, like Gavin said, and I was like, I want to learn more about this. I think the biggest thing is it's like it's you're throwing a blank cell into a body, and it basically is like what needs help, like what part of the body needs like healthy cells or whatever it might be, like what part of the body is not healthy that I can go help. And I know right now, I know they haven't like 100% been able to like guide, directly guide the cell to where it went. Like, say I have a knee pain and my shoulder hurts. They can't right now. They can't necessarily like, put it in like the certain area of your body where it goes directly where it needs to go. So like it could end up helping my knees out. Like obviously they'll inject it near your knees or your shoulder based on what your injury is, but
It's like a
um,
gamble almost. I remember kind of knowing that, you're like,
like there's a
is it
better
going to
shot.
work? Is it not? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a better shot it works on my shoulder if you inject it near my shoulder, sure. But like there's never they're not 100% like they put it here, it works here. But like broadly, it helps like it can help anything is the point. It's a blank cell that gets in your body and from muscle pain to organ diseases or heart disease, whatever it is. Um I know like I think the biggest thing we're seeing right now is like people are banking stem cells at my age. So you start producing stem cells in like I don't know, near our age, maybe 30 or so. It's just like it decreases quickly. Right now we're still producing rapid stem cell, at least me and Gavin are, and you probably are you're at that age, Nick, it's probably slowing down a little bit, and it's just the reality of
I'm
life.
fresh out, shooting
Yeah,
blanks.
you're rolling out of them, but from like probably 21 or so, 25, it's like you're pumping out like I mean all your life, and then like 25 is probably when it starts to slow down. I'm not 100% right, but you can fact check me on that. But at this age right now, I know for a fact we're pumping out like thousands of stem cells of these stem cells every day, and they don't get directed or regulated, or they just go to waste. And so right now, what people are doing, it's a huge thing in third world countries right now, or not in third world, just not in America. It's not happening legally. People are banking stem cells, right? So when I'm 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, I have these stem cells that came from my body, that know my body. Um, they're like in a bank somewhere, a stem cell bank. And I come back and I have a back issue or a knee issue or I have a heart disease or whatever it is. You come it's just like literally any disease or sickness or injury you can think of. These things right now, obviously not 100%, they can help. So you come back like 40 years from now, 60 years from now. Gavin mentioned earlier, there's some old guy with too much money with bummed up knees, and he went and got his knees fixed up. And it's just, it's the potential the potential in the stem cells is so wild and so like still so much research needs to be done, but they've seen so much ability in like in being able to like plug and play these things basically like throw these blank stem cells and they adapt to like the part of the body and become what it needs to become.
Yeah, and
Huge
I've heard
fan.
stories. I've heard stories such as like the doctor that does these stem cell treatments, like he was self-testing it on him, and used to be like a marathon runner, older dude, and he would he was self-testing it on him, and he was like, I used to get tired walking up the stairs and everything, and after a few treatments, he was like, I was back to running marathons at like an old age. So I've heard stories like that they can be extremely beneficial, but like Ryan's saying, it's, sometimes can be a gamble, because we can't really have control over them.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, yeah. I mean, you touched on it, right? You guys even, despite the many benefits that your family sees in it, you still had to fly to Panama for it, right? It's
Right.
still, um,
Yeah.
unregulated in the U.S. So you have to go to these other countries where there's less regulations that allow you to do it. But and I guess it's still, extremely controversial. Like, how do you generate these stem cells, and who does it come from? I guess I don't know. I'm thinking like something like the Matrix. Like you have these bodies that you're just link up to these machines and like pulling out stem cells that are feeding for the ultra rich. Like these peasants just become the source of the stem cells for the ultra rich to live forever. Um, but what was it
Gosh,
you were
hopefully
saying?
not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, I think obviously, there's the contrarian, possibility of that, um, but Ryan, what were you gonna say?
I think the biggest push well one of the biggest pushbacks from like the reason why it's not fully legal in America, and I'm not going to get into this really deep at all. I'm just going to put this out there and kind of let it float, and you can think of it the way you want to. But um, it's a very political argument, and it stems from a lot of fetal tissue um, holds like a lot of stem cells, very fresh stem cells, and a lot of stem cells, and so um, you can we're like if it that's all I'll say. But it causes controversy. It's like where to your point, where are these stem cells coming from, right? Like, is it coming from a baby that has passed away at a young age and we're pulling it from it because like that doesn't seem appropriate? I don't know. Just it's controversial to your point, and that's the main thing is it comes from very random places, and so that's why when I was talking about it, I like it in the sense of like my body, my like I'm 21, 22 years old. I take my whatever, I'm 23. I take my stem cells out and I use them for myself later. Or like say like my brother or somebody that I know needs help, I'll give them some, my stem cells. But
Yeah.
that's where the argument comes from is like we pull these stem cells from, young young infants that might have passed away or had an abortion or something like that, like the worst of the worst, and then that's where the big pushback is from the American. At least that's what I understand from talking to my professor. Is that's where a big pushback comes from, is that kind of stuff. But I want to say on the record, I fully support stem cells treatment for yourself from yourself. Let's make that known.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that disclaimer there. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I guess obviously it makes sense. Like our bodies stop producing certain things, but if you pull from yourself, at your ripe age, and then use it for older you down the road, that seems to make sense. It seems a little bit more ethical in that sense, but yeah,
You got your clip there. If you find the right 30 seconds, you'll find a controversial clip there.
heck yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's somewhere we could drip that, and the internet will do its thing, good or bad. But Gavin, we stole a lot of your time tonight. I appreciate that. We didn't take any of your
Yeah,
stem
no
cells,
problem.
but as we said before, time is our most precious commodity. Ryan, I don't know if you had anything else, but we'll just probably close it out here. Maybe 5 more minutes. We have a few questions that we ask all our
Yeah,
guests. So,
I was gonna throw in one more, then you can do the final questions.
let's
Just a
hear
quick
it.
one. Just we do this with everybody. We do it. You probably heard of Aiden. just like, is there anything that has been on your mind, heart lately that you kind of wanted to get off the chest or share or talk about just real quick? Anything you got going?
No,
It could be deep. It
honestly,
could
I
be
mean,
shallow.
we honestly already touched on it, was just how hard the transition's been. That was definitely something I wanted to touch on about, and I've been thinking about, recently, and how it kind of blindsided me. It wasn't something I was really expecting, for it to be a difficult transition, but it was. So that was really, honestly, like one of the things that I really wanted to talk about. So we already
Well,
covered
here
that,
we
which
go.
is great. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Um, I'll run it out here. Hit you with a few questions. So, I don't know if you're a reader of, like music or movies, but we ask these questions and answer all of these if you choose, or you can pick, the ones that really make sense for you. But what is your favorite book, fiction or nonfiction, favorite song, and favorite movie?
Oh man. All right. Well, luckily I listened to the Aiden podcast, so I knew these questions were coming because I was like thinking,
There
I
you
was like,
go.
man, if I was put on the spot, I was like, this is gonna be difficult. But I would say definitely favorite movie. I think I mentioned it earlier. It was Top Gun. It's just such a nostalgic movie for me. I remember watching that with my pops, um, back when I was like 7 or 6 years old, and you know. Um, it's definitely takes a lot of credit in getting me into aviation. It made me love Tom Cruise. I thought he was so badass, and just the jets and everything. And the new one is great. It's phenomenal, but the old one is still my favorite in my opinion because it just has that nostalgic value to it. But I think it's a great movie. Um, and then
Absolutely.
book is easy. I'd say. Uh, something that I've been taking on is, reading a lot of self-help books. Not that I'm, down in the dumps about myself, but I think they're great reads and really give you different perspective on how to think of things. And one that has been absolutely incredible, and you guys may have already read it, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It is one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. Um, and I never thought I'd be one of those people that like goes back and like rereads a book they already read, but it is such a good book, especially if, you're somebody who, is going through a hard time, like a life transition, or, I don't know. It could be anything. It's a great read, and it's a very easy read, which is helpful as well. And the way he writes it, it's at a very personable level. It's not like some doctor being like, you need to go talk to somebody. It's a very personable, and he throws in jokes there. He curses in the book, and it's very good. I recommend it to anybody that is thinking about getting into reading because it's an easy read as well. And
Awesome,
then
man.
yeah,
He's about to
and
hit us
then
with some
you
John
said
Mayer right here.
no, no, no. I'm surprised you said that. I mean, John Mayer's pretty good. I'm surprised that wasn't Aiden. I forget what he said. He said some like what did he say? Like
Oh
Led
man, Nick
Zeppelin or
knew what it
somebody. He
was.
said like some rock band or something.
We talked
But
about Sublime at some point. I don't know if that was.
yeah, and
I
it
think it
was
was.
That.
it was Sublime.
It was
Yeah,
Sublime.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just listened to this podcast like a week ago, so it's fresh on my memory. It was Sublime. Um,
Yeah.
but definitely, I would say right now. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of music because my commute and everything, and when I fly, I listen to music. Um, I would say probably Wine and Roses by Frank Sinatra is probably one of my favorite songs right now. I'm a huge Frank
Oh man.
Sinatra fan. Um, I would do anything to go see that man perform live right now. But I think that's such a great song. And especially, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with any Frank song. I have a whole playlist of just Frank Sinatra songs. But that's definitely one that I've been listening to a lot recently. But it's also really hard to say that's my like all-time favorite song because I listen to literally every type of music, like reggae, I mean alternative country, rap, I mean 40s, 70s, disco, like I listen to literally everything. But
Yeah, I was
right
gonna
now I've
say
been playing that a lot. I mean, you can ask
I was gonna
Ryan
say
how
Gavin's like
it's bipolar with my music.
he's all over the place, and it's good because I'm like pretty similar. I like to listen to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
But Nick, just to give you like a little like image, so you can just like picture like Gavin like in like his living room with like his wife, with like a fireplace going, and just like dancing to Frank Sinatra.
That's you.
Got that
That's him.
Frank
Yeah,
Sinatra.
yeah.
You know, you got a little glass of some scotch or bourbon, you know, by the fire, and got that, you know, vinyl playing. Oh man, or a glass of wine or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wine and Roses.
yeah, yes sir. But
Yeah.
no, it's been great. But that's a hard question because I mean I love music and it really just depends on the day what I'm, you know. I'm probably the only person that can go from listening to Kodak Black to Frank Sinatra in a 5 minute period.
Back to back songs.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God, can't even think
Yeah.
about that.
Listen, man, you picked all classics today. Well, I guess "Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck" is a modern version of Napoleon Hill or Dale Carnegie, but it's still all the same.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Super good book.
yeah. So, last question I guess we'll ask is, where can people find you on social media?
Oh yeah. Good luck spelling it. It's GA_Abendschein on Instagram. That's really the only thing I use. But it's ABENDSCHEIN for the last name. Everybody butchers it. I'm kind of used to it.
A B
But
E
yeah,
N D S
you
C H E I N.
EIN.
If they
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
the
So
podcast enough, they'll figure it out.
yeah. Just rewind the clip
Well,
12 times while you're typing it in.
I'll be sure to give you a follow. But appreciate your time, man. It was definitely a blast having you on here, and a lot of stuff that Ryan and I never would have known about being a pilot. For me personally, learned a lot about you today. I'm sure Ryan's gotten to know you pretty well, but it was definitely an epic episode, and can't wait to publish it.
We're trying to
Yeah,
get moved to
yeah.
Dallas, Nick,
Thanks.
which means you do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that?
We're trying to get Gavin moved to Dallas, and
Oh yeah,
something you got to come too.
it's gonna happen.
Dude,
Let's make
I
it
don't
happen.
know, man. Ryan, I think we should do Florida, man. The warm weather
I'm
and, you know,
I'm also down for some Palm Springs or something, or Palm Beach.
yeah, I know. I love it down there. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. You know, and I would love to be on it again sometime in the future.